I have a handout that has the first page of what was our proposed budget at our last budget workshop. So this is the same document that we had previously, which was a document that generated $1,800,000 in revenue above what was originally proposed by adding timber tax revenue of $200,000, DNR revenue of $200,000, sales tax revenue of $45,000, increasing the traffic policing diversion of $500,000, and creating a levy shift of $855,000. And then the commission adjusted proposed expenditures by adding to the assessor $50,000, to the auditor $50,000, to the clerk $100,000, to district court $86,000 roughly, to the prosecutor $210,000, to the coroner $40,000, increasing traffic policing diversion of $500,000, public defense office of $200,000, to superior court $60,000, and adding back to the treasurer $65,000. Sorry, superior court was $100,000, and adding back to the treasurer $65,000. That also allowed us to add $410,000 to ending fund balance. After that, we had a briefing, and the commissioners each had a separate set of proposals. So what I did was generated 3 pro formas based on each one of those. And starting off with Commissioner Netherland's proposal. Now, everything in the second, third, and fourth page are adjustments to this front page. So with that, I can say that the proposal that Commissioner Netherland brought forward eliminated the traffic policing diversion, eliminated the levy shift. But it added to timber revenue $50,000, DNR revenue $50,000, jail contract with the city revenue of $95,000, sales tax revenue of $50,000, additional ER&R of $20,000, as well as BHO funds of $150,000. So on the expenditure side, we have exactly the same appropriate cuts. What were cut was traffic policing of $500,000. The prosecutor's office was reduced by $90,000. The treasurer's office was reduced by $65,000. District court was increased by $26,000, and the clerk buy-down was reduced by $25,000. That also reduced the adjustment to ending fund balance from the $210,000 by $286,000. So it still did bring up the ending fund balance slightly. The next page has Commissioner Drexler's proposal. There, the revenue adjustments were to increase timber revenue by $50,000, DNR revenue by $50,000, eliminate the levy shift of $855,000, add city jail contract of $95,000, add sales tax revenue of $50,000, add ER&R savings of $20,000, and BHO funds of $150,000. On the expenditure side, it adjusted those revenues by adding to district court $26,000, adding to the coroner $5,600, adding to the sheriff $150,000, deducting from OPD $60,000, deducting from Superior Court $100,000, and adjusting ending fund balance to balance the transaction out. So again, these are reminders. A reminder is that all of these adjustments are adjustments off of the first page. The last proposal is Commissioner Schue's proposal. And what it does is Increases revenue, additional timber trust revenue of $50,000, DNR revenue of $50,000, adds to the traffic policing diversion of $200,000, adds city jail contract of $95,000, adds $50,000 to sales tax revenue, adds $20,000 to ER&R, adjusts ending fund balance, and adds $150,000 worth of DHO funds. On the expenditure side, those additional revenues were allocated to increase the district court by $26,000, increase the coroner by $5,600, increase the sheriff's office budget by $200,000, increase traffic policing diversion of $200,000, add to the Superior Court $66,646, add to non-departmental for vehicle purchases of $260,000, as well as lease purchase agreements, and then adjusted ending fund balance down by $143,246. So those are the three scenarios that we have. And
I'm sure Judy's proposal. The non-departmental, 260,000 is vehicle purchase, lease to own, and what else?
Should, I don't know how you got to 260, but it's 165 for the vehicle purchase,
and 21 for the lease to own.
which is, then, there's $80,000.
Extra in there.
Oh, 80,000, because you got the 20K for the additional year.
I think he said 265,
I said 260.
260.
It's the 74 cost of.
I'm sorry,
levy
you're right.
The levy shift,
74,
okay.
yeah.
Oh, the levy shift.
The levy shift.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yeah, there is a buyback component to the levy shift for the city of Chelsea, should that follow through. So, question is, how do we reconcile this?
I just want to throw out, the public doesn't know about the standards before, but we do, and they're going to know about it. And with the adjustment that's happening to us, if we don't shift and put money away, if we were going to do any kind of levy shift or anything, it should be put money directly into the ending fund balance to give us a cushion. We should definitely, with what they're saying, they can come back and change it even mid-year on us. I definitely would rather us go a lot more extreme, careful, and put money away right now to keep that from happening.
So what Commissioner Donovan is referring to, if you didn't catch that, was as part of the process of refinancing a few bonds in the utility side of the budget, you have to go through a credit rating from Standard & Poor's. Part of the Finance Council, which is made up of Karen's here, so the auditor, the treasurer, and then whoever is the chair of the commission. So we went through that process over the past several weeks. Standard & Poor's has come back and said, based on previous budgets and the situation with the Belfair sewer system, that we're going to receive a credit downgrade. And so we were at a AA negative, which is a good credit rating, and now they are downgrading us to an A+ with a negative outlook. So while it might seem like A+ is something that we all strive for maybe in school, A+ from a double A- is not good. That's a downgrade. So that's what Commissioner Netherland is referring to.
And then let us know if we don't solidify, one of the big parts is the revenue aspect. That's what they point out, and of course, as Mr. Shitty mentioned, Russellwood, Belfair, the sewers. But if we don't shore that up, they have let us know they will look at it again in the near future. So, this isn't a time to gamble, I guess is what I'm saying.
So Frank, we took a vote a couple of weeks ago to certify levies. I think we need to take another vote on the levy certification for technical reasons, but also two of the budget proposals don't include the levy shift or using the bank capacity. Can you talk a little bit about maybe the timeline on that and what?
So the sooner the better as far as a recertification of the levy. But it will need to define how much the diversion is going to be, and whether there's going to be an increase to what was certified, or whether there's an increase to what we had last year. In other words, last year we had $1.5 million. One of the proposals increases, the original certification increased it to $2 million by $500,000. And one of the proposals increases it again by $200,000 to $2,200,000. So that's going to need to be certified, as well as whether or not we do a levy shift. If the decision is not to do a levy shift, then that would need to be pulled out of the equation, and the certification would need to reflect that as well.
And that's basically done, that can be done simultaneously with passing a budget, is that correct?
It can be done next Tuesday at the next meeting if that's when we pass and adopt a budget. If the decision is made today, we can do that tomorrow. If the decision is made today as to how to proceed with a budget, then we can do that tomorrow at tomorrow's meeting.
But nothing precludes us from doing it at the...
But nothing precludes
the
it.
next meeting.
Correct.
You had a hesitation, I just didn't know if there was one.
Right. No, there's nothing precludes us from doing it next Tuesday when we adopt the budget and do the certification, levy certification at the same time.
So I think there's a couple ways to look at this. I don't know if you had a way to maybe think about this. One of them is to discuss revenues. The other one is to decide how much we're willing to spend. And land on the how much we're willing to spend number, and then look at all these revenue options. And so I'm just suggesting that might be a way to have this conversation. We can go line by line regarding each of the departments. And we've heard from the departments themselves and the elected officials about the impacts of these cuts. Some of us have made some decisions based on what we've heard. Some of them adjusted those decisions based on the next round. I don't know if that's something that there's negotiation, or we just need to find among the three of us a common area, or at least two votes.
Right.
I can tell you some areas I have flexibility on.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was, we kind of made it clear in some of our discussions that if, because I would like to see the sheriff's department in swift and certain, but they found another way of increasing revenue. I have no problem with offsetting that revenue increase off of their budget to have it not be to actually have it be a reduction in the amount of cut, just to put that out there. I also would engage in the conversation in regards to the vehicles, to the point to where it's $165,000, but there's $40,000 out there, kind of $40,000 out there for that vehicle that was wrecked, and there's a need for $21,000 to purchase the lease vehicle. So if we were to give them the possibility of $150,000 out of the road fund, I would think it should be for that purpose, but at the same time, it would be up to the sheriff's department to decide how they spend that money. But I could see giving 150, but that's all I can see doing. And if we were to do any type of a levy shift or anything like that, I think we should only be entertaining that for the idea of building our basic fund balance.
So you have a proposal here to reduce the prosecutors, the buy-up we had discussed after you had left the room, I understand it. And there's no compelling justification, or would you like to hear the justification either of us have on that?
You can, we did have a discussion though the next day, and on what that money could be used for and would be used for. I myself, understanding that we're all hurting in every department, I was trying to make sure to save one job. Sounds like if they could even find $50,000 more in their budget, they'd be able to have two level 1 attorneys. But if you have something you want to add to that, we did meet.
Okay, so basically I just have the documents that I had asked for some, what does that mean, staffing reductions? And it looked like the proposed, you know, reducing the buyback of by 90,000, we lose 2 current attorneys and then the 1 unfilled position. So that's 3 total position losses. Is that correct?
I'm not sure I follow that.
Okay, so with the potential of $210,000 more, not having to cut $210,000 would leave you with a cut requirement of 68,330. That would bring you to a position of having to lay off 1 attorney and not fill the unfilled position. So you've got 2 position losses there.
Are you including the position that's already been cut out of here? Because if you are, then
Yes, yes. But,
Of one that's already been eliminated,
okay,
one that's currently funded but not filled.
right. And then, so another, there's proposal, if you go to page 2, Commissioner Netherland's proposing that you increase the cuts, we increase the cuts to the prosecutor's office by another 90,000 from the,
From the 68,332.
Correct.
and that would eliminate a 3rd attorney position.
And more. At the original number, 278,330, it's definitely the one that's gone, the one that's currently, we haven't refilled, and at least 1 more.
And then can you share what your discussion with Commissioner Netherland was about? It seems like there's a comfort level about $90,000, requesting 68 plus 90,000 in cuts.
For a total of 158, 330.
Yeah,
Right.
And whose comfort level are you speaking of?
yours, because I just said, you know, we added, you had left the room, we'd added another 90,000. You said you had a discussion with the prosecutor.
Yeah, but I was there when all that occurred.
Right, so,
You know, that's the thing that's odd about it. But I was there when all that occurred. When it was added in, we were looking at revenues. And we were looking at bringing in revenues from the road fund and increasing the budget by taking the full bank capacity. And there became $884,000. And what started to happen at that time was there was a doling out of the $884,000. At that which time there was no discussion as much as, you know, we had 90,000. The were gonna give it to them. Discussions occurred afterwards. My numbers are based on when I went over each of the budgets, looking at what revenues that we had before talking about any type of the bank capacity, and coming up with just what I thought was absolutely necessary, not what I want. If I had my choice, I'd give the prosecuting attorney tons of money, but it doesn't work that way. What I had, the only thing I could justify at the time was trying to save one of the jobs. Now, it turns out that they could actually save they could have two bottom end level 1 attorneys, and we figured that it was about $80,000 per, with Benny's on the bottom at 84 or something like that. So we came up with almost 170,000 when we were sitting there doing the numbers for two level 1 attorneys. But like I said, I did 120 trying to save a high-end attorney at the time.
Right.
And that's where I came up with that number. Revenue in, revenue out. So it wasn't, I just had to let them know what I saw.
But see, that's where, I mean, I could get rid of all of my deputy prosecutors and hire a whole bunch more than I have currently of all entry-level deputy ones. That's not what I need.
I know that.
At 68,330, we have the potential of converting, we've lost the one position, we have the potential of converting, and that's where we had the discussion at our last workshop, of converting the currently unfilled deputy 3 position to a deputy 1 level, entry level, potentially, which would put back on the table the ability to hopefully do something more forward-thinking with the lower level driving offenses in district court. At 158,330, and that's the way I think of the numbers as far as the buyback and add back and whatnot. At cutting $158,330 more from where we are right now, is the unfilled position is gone. And in order to save a layoff of another higher level deputy prosecutor, I have to find where to find the balance that eliminating the unfilled position doesn't reach. That's the hard part. So I don't know if that answered the Commissioner's question, but the answer is, I guess, yes and no, which you should expect nothing less from an attorney, I suppose. But every time the calculus changes, then the priorities for where to find the money changes. So that's the hard part.
So my justification for wanting to limit the requested cuts to $68,000 for the prosecutor's office is because I think we have some major civil legal issues. I'd like to think we won't have to farm it out, that we can do it internally. But I think the Hearst decision, I think we will get sued on our how we've used the Hearst decision, and I think we absolutely need to have a staffed up prosecuting attorney's office, and so that's my thought around that.
Yeah, that was sort of my rationale as well. I think, and I'd just add to that, every office in the county in some way, shape, or form relies on advice from the prosecutor's office, and also I think well, the one thing that doesn't change, and if it does change, it's not necessarily in a great way for us, is our liability and exposure. That's a moving target, and I think having an adequately staffed and funded prosecutor's office helps on the risk management side as well.
I'm glad to see we're all three in agreement on the district court level funding. I know it's not the ideal, and I gotta tell you, it's pretty good.
And as I've mentioned, I think that the commissioners have to look at reducing the anticipated revenue when we don't have the staff to address the traffic infractions. And it's just rough guesses, it could go down 200,000, could go down more. And it's just it's a reality, it's not intended as a threat.
I understand.
And I want to be
And
clear on that.
And I made that
realize-
decision based,
Right.
knowing with that assumption.
I think the revenue side needs to be adjusted to reflect that.
Did you have a comment?
Again, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, I'm just restating some things that I know. When we did our budget last year, we knew it was extremely tight. We were down to the last 30,000 trying to figure a way to do it. So we budgeted out to a zero sum at the end. But what we couldn't control was those revenues. And when the revenues did not come in, they had a huge effect on us. The thing I worry about right now is we may be doing the same thing in a situation where we've already been downgraded. On the revenue side, aside from what you're seeing right here, we had asked Frank to go back and look at all the numbers, because I could tell that there was another hit we were gonna take that we had not asked the departments to do. So if you remember, then we went back and he did those numbers. Well, that made the cuts even greater, especially in some departments. I think in the sheriff's department, it was an additional 310,000 cuts. What we did, it wasn't magic, we increased revenue in different lines in order to get back to zero and not have those extra cuts put on, to bring us back to this other number that we're doing now. Since then, the discussion has been on increasing revenue some more, putting us more at risk, because remember, we just increased it by 700, in order to do that cut, to stop that cut from happening. How much was that, Frank, 725,000?
I believe so.
I think it was $725,000 more than what had been cut. We increased our revenue side, already saying that. Now, since then, some of the things that we went through and we had added before, because what you're looking at now is a snapshot from now above what we had already increased this last two times. It's hard to see that here. So we increased our revenue by, I don't know how much, 1.8 million, I think is what it was, on top of the 725 we had done. And now we're justifying that backwards and forwards and adding more revenue on top of that. My concern is that we're doing the same thing over again. Maybe it will be just fine, it could be. But after we've already been downgraded, can we take that chance?
So here's my question, what revenues are you uncertain about that you want us to go back and look at? I've eliminated the levy shift out of mine. There is a $500K increase in the traffic diversion, which is revenue we know is sitting there. Of which of the other revenues are you not, and the 95,000 jail contract, I hope, and this is what I understood, was the contract was worth X amount of dollars as guaranteed income. It was put in as a revenue item at lower than what the contract was. Now, if there's a chance that the contract can't be met with these cuts, I need to hear that.
Which contract?
The city of Shelton jail
The city.
contract.
No, at this particular point, that's a constant.
So that 95K is only because it was
We budgeted for
not budgeted
115
for
in
the total
conversation
amount.
with Chief Hanson. He identified that it should be more.
Now, I'm just throwing it out there, and I suspect it's not legally supported, but that's what we have the prosecutor for. Any portion of the public works traffic levy shift, can that be utilized for district court that handles the traffic
No.
cases?
There was- there was
That's kind of what I
Thursday.
suspected.
Yeah, that's what happened to them, that's why they got hit.
Okay,
As a matter of fact, we were trying to see if there's a way to use it to help fund the deputy prosecutor to do the traffic infractions and cases, and that's prohibited as well.
Although credit for asking it on this side of that decision.
right.
So Commissioner Nevlin, you're making,
Unfortunately.
you're making some, or you are talking about some cautions about the revenue assumptions here. Please talk to me about which of the revenue assumptions you are most uncomfortable with.
Okay, now, as we already, I think we've established, we're not gonna maybe be doing the levy shift, although we already have voted to do it. So, not having that there, it's gonna adjust our numbers down, because we've already portioned out some of these monies with that in there. Another one is the timber revenue. Now, we're increasing that again. We got, earlier, I couldn't even get anybody to say we increase it at all or put anything in it, it was zero. But I'm just saying now, as we're going, this is our second bite or third bite.
So if I may, it's increased by 200, it's increased to 250,000
250.
from what was
So,
zero.
yeah,
Are
so
you comfortable with that?
Yes.
It's on your proposal,
Yes,
so you are comfortable
Yes,
with that? Thank you.
I'm okay with that. The same thing with the DNR revenue, but, you know, I get nervous as we're getting further on. The jail contract, I don't have an issue with at all. The sales tax revenue, this is our third or fourth addition where we've added.
So again, that's only gone up by $250,000 in total.
But we still keep doing it, and we're not at our final numbers, is my point. You know, we have different proposals here, there's nobody saying this is the amount.
I know,
I think so.
I'm looking for your comfort level.
The additional, the ending fund balance concept, if we're not gonna use that at all, I'm actually okay with that, because I expect that we'll have that big chunk for our ending fund balance when it does come back in. If we're not gonna utilize it, if we're not gonna bring anything back in from roads, I can live with that. But I am just cautioning as we start to go over all of our plans and increasing it by another 700,000, or what, discussing that, these are things to keep in mind.
Okay, so you are comfortable with every one of the revenue line items that are on your performance?
That are on mine, except for, again, so there's no confusion, the levy shift.
Yeah,
It's off.
it's not on, it's off.
Yeah.
Go to yours,
I am,
tell me it.
I'm sure I am on mine. And I'm telling you, I just want to clarify that that's the one part, I want to make sure that it's known that those are off from the original revenue. But yes, everything else on mine.
And if you don't mind, if you could please go to page 3 and talk to me about your comfort level on my revenue assumptions. The traffic diversion, I assume is one. That's not listed here, but.
Yeah, the traffic diversion, I still get a little bit squishy on the sales tax increase at the end, just because I like having it in the reserve. The adding of that mental health tax, though, I'd like to see it supplant, not just an addition, because that's money that can go to student. But other than that, your revenue side, I'm okay with it.
And then, policy, for policy purposes, can you tell me why you oppose a 500,000 increase in the traffic diversion?
Because with all the work that I did and looking at the numbers and the things that I see, I believe that the cuts can be made. And I think they should be made, just like all the other departments have. It may not be popular, but it is what I see, so I don't know how I can tell the public that it shouldn't happen. When I know that, especially if we're not gonna do the tax increase, which I'm hoping we're not, currently in the roads, it should stay there. We're already at 20% compared to 9% like KISSA. I know that we're all different, but the 9% and 20% is a huge difference. As I said earlier, though, I would entertain the idea of $150,000 if it was, because in my opinion, it should go for the vehicles. But if it goes to the sheriff's budget, it's up to them and how they would decide to spend that. But I can see doing that if it's an absolute need right now. And that includes the 3, with the buyback of $40,000 for the crashed vehicle that's there, and an addition of $21,000 to buy the leased vehicle. But personally, again, I think that I think we got too many leased vehicles going on in there too. But that's that's part of the cuts.
So my reasoning for wanting to support an increase of 500,000 on the traffic diversion is based on conversations I've had with some of the sheriff's staff, not at the sheriff's level. I haven't had this discussion with the sheriff. There is potentially some attrition in 2018, natural attrition. And there is a cadre of new officers that we've invested a lot in to get them on board and they're showing to be pretty good. And this is a stopgap for me to realize to see if that attrition does happen. And we can keep these younger bodies on the force. And in my discussion with the staff was that if we're in the same place next year, be willing to take the cuts. I don't know if that helps bring you over to consideration of the diversion or not.
Let me ask you this, because you've had that conversation with them, are they willing to? What does that mean? You know, as you've seen over the history, we're willing to do one thing, and then when the time comes, it's to sure out firefighting. Are they willing to put that in writing, saying that if the revenue doesn't come in or something, it might have a different conversation if that's the case. But even then, I'm not sure that would stop the war that comes every time we have to have these discussions. One of the issues also is if we give it now, as we found, if we do it now, if we don't do the cuts now, then next year it'll be 2.2 million or 2.4 million. And the same war, the same thing will happen, and I'll be looking at the same numbers that I'm finding now and saying, okay, well, how do I justify this when I see this? They may disagree with my numbers. I do the best that I can in looking at it, just like I'm sure you guys do when you're making your decisions.
So yeah, given the history and the rocky history we've had with that office and the trust issues around how the money should, or what we all thought the money could be spent, I'm willing to go out there and trust one more time. For what it's worth, yeah, I'm willing to actually get kicked in the head again.
Well, I don't mind it get, I don't like it, it sucks. But that's not the reason why I'm making my decisions, it's based on what I see that can be done. We've had those discussions before about how, I think admin is going to touch it perfect. Again, it's up to their department on how they will do it. But because I can see it in their budget, I don't want to just close my eyes and pretend I don't.
Having looked at the vehicle list and the odometer readings and the urgency of purchasing vehicles, I don't see that urgency. So I am not in favor of buying new vehicles, especially in a year when jobs are being lost. Just to share where I am on that one.
I'm okay with that. I was actually trying to find a happy medium. Because I'm okay with that.
I think the other part of the concern that I have along the lines of the natural attrition commissioner is, in particular, if we're going to engage a citizen committee to review some of these things, I think it would be, I think it would be prudent to do the cuts in a more tiered phase, so that we don't create for ourselves essentially coming into it a false positive in that you're going to have a citizens group review the budget and review the operations of the offices, where they come back and they say, well, we think these positions should have been, need to add these back, and then we're potentially chasing those positions and those dollars for quite some time. And for me, that's not even necessarily just limited to the sheriff's office, but I mean, countywide, I think a lot of offices have demonstrated, there's certainly the workload and that kind of thing. So I think, that's particularly where, my support of doing the bank capacity has come from, is, to do a more tiered reduction over a longer period of time to allow offices to continue to assess how they function and then to engage the community in I think a more thorough conversation about where we're headed as a county, not just on the revenue side, but certainly on the expenditure and staffing side as well.
I see that, but those cuts, if the Citizens Committee comes out with recommendation for those cuts are going to happen. I've tried to engage every person I come across, citizen voted, over the last week and a half. And despite going through each department, the effects on each department and the services to the citizens, the impacts of these services, the citizens that I've talked to are saying, make the cuts, Commissioner. And the one place that I am hedging on is the, is for the reasons I said about wanting to save some of the bodies in the sheriff's office.
So I think maybe given all that and where things are, looking at all three proposals, Commissioner, to your earlier point about defining, or do we look at this from the expenditure side, or do we look at this from the revenue side? I think ultimately, I think we need to define the box
Okay,
of
I
revenue,
agree. I agree.
and, I certainly, I stand by, my previous vote and my conversations around the levy shift. Respect your reasoning there, and, and I certainly understand that, that that's not a popular position to be in. Mine isn't a popular position to be in. I'm sure it will certainly incite some of the Facebook warriors out there for sure. But looking at the totality of information that I've been provided with, I think that is a position that I'm not going to change. But again, I respect the process, and I don't want to see us delay to the point where offices can't implement the budget that we adopt, given the time constraints that we're against right now.
If anybody's keeping score, it sounds like it's, if you're not willing to move off the levy shift, potentially Commissioner that way we might need to come to an agreement.
And it's funny because I'm sitting here right now. When I first started this conversation, I was the one saying there's more revenue than we're taking into consideration. And now I'm the one saying we're taking the risk of taking too much revenue into consideration. I was never part of agreeing to give people more money, but now I'm responsible for taking it away if it does happen. And you want to talk about popularity, I think I'm getting the short end there. And it doesn't matter, that is where we're at. We have a situation where we have a credit issue happening at the same time. If we don't make the cuts that are necessary to right our house, I don't want to face what we're going to for the county, regardless of who gets mad at me, including the citizens or the elected officials. We have to just look at what we have now for revenue, and we can spend it out, where I'd rather see money go into our ending fund balance, but if you were to take and put all the revenue again from where we started for the cuts, and maybe we back it back out again.
If I may interject, and not to articulate something different than what you just said, the 500,000 traffic diversion is not revenue that's, if I can call it, questionable. The decision is made, that comes in. Levy shift is again not questionable. If the decision is made to do a levy shift, those funds come in. So that's $1,355,000 worth of revenue. The other revenue, albeit minor, does add up. The 250 for timber, the 250 for DNR, 95,000 for jail contract, and 250. That's almost $1 million right there. There I might call that somewhat questionable. But on the other hand, to budget $0 for either of those would be not allowing for any revenue in those areas, knowing that we would receive some kind of revenue.
I agree. And that was my argument originally.
And we knew that we were going to, we know we're going to receive some kind of revenue, and we had been projecting 500,000 or 750,000 when we collected maybe 450,000. But we should receive some revenue for each one of those items, and 250 is a reasonable, very low-end projection for what will more than likely come in for those revenue items. So I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I'll just say, and again, I mean, I feel like I was pretty clear here in saying that, you know, there's a majority of the commission that doesn't believe that a levy shift is the appropriate way to address the issue. I wasn't going to stand in the way. I was going to advocate for what I believe was right for the county, but I wasn't going to obstruct the process. I want to be clear about that. The other comment that I will make is, in my proposal, I built a proposal that relies largely in cash on, you know, that is built with revenue in hand, given the shift, as well as has a higher ending fund balance, I believe, than the other two proposals. So, but again, I'm not going to stand in the way of the
I guess that's where I'm kind of having difficulty understanding, because if I look at the current, where would I find the ending fund balance at this column?
3,414,996, bottom line of the proposed column, yes.
Okay, thank you.
one of the, you know, and then I guess just the final point that I would make is part of the thing that came out is with a conversation with Standard & Poor's, and it's something that I hear quite a bit in other conversations. You know, and this is again purely anecdotal, so take it however you want to. But I think one of the things that we have to consider is making sure that we have a stable level of government. And, you know, I think having a reasonable approach to reducing expenditures over time, we've given ourselves a window to make up the difference in the reserve. You know, and I think giving ourselves a reasonable window to, you know, to do the reduction in spending, I think there's some merit to that. And wherever this ends up this year, I think that should be part of the conversation. I don't anticipate looking at all three proposals that, you know, I don't anticipate that we're going to find that we've hit all 17.5% of the reduction. So either way, we're going to have a tiered reduction in costs over time. And I would just not want us to lose sight of that. And I think that helps, you know, sort of reassure people that may be on the outside looking in that, you know, that there's some measured approach to how we budget and manage the finances.
A quick clarification on the Indian fund balance, because we're not taking anything from the unexpended budget authority. You know, my expectation is that we're going to have about 600,000 that end up on that at the end of the year. But even if we budgeted 2, 3, 4, we're still.
At the very least, we know the budgeted claims revenue that we have not spent, the budgeted claims expenditure that we have not materially spent will fall to the bottom line. That's somewhere close to $375,000 at the very minimum.
Budgeted claims expenditure.
So we budget a reserve for claims in non-departmental annually of about $390,000. I don't think we've spent.
For our actuarial.
Yeah, I don't think we've spent more than $10,000 at this stage. So about 380 of that will come to the ending fund balance at the very minimum. And not every department is going to spend every dime down to their budget authority. So there will be some funding that comes in from that, which will drop to the ending fund balance.
Please give me the full numbers again. It was 250 for DNR.
250 for DNR, 250 for timber revenue, 250 for sales tax revenue.
And now, on that sales tax revenue, you had already increased it to get us down to that 725,000. I don't want to confuse those.
Correct. Well, that was 105,000 there.
This does not include that, you're saying?
Correct, this does not include.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Additional 95,000 in jail contract. An additional 20,000 in ER&R savings. and an additional $150,000 in VHO funds available to offset nursing costs, available for behavioral health purposes.
So I'm getting a 915 increase of revenues.
It's right, about $1 million.
Is that what you're getting? Above where we were when we started.
Mm-hmm.
I have a, from my recommendations, I have a increase in expenditures of 700,000.
You have a decrease in
I'm
expenditures.
talking about from the original. Looking at adding more money into the budget, I have an increase of 700,000. 100 to Superior
Oh,
Court.
yes, yep, to get to the original.
I'm sorry, I've lost you all.
So in order to come to this page, we had additions of about $700,000 of revenue, which were adjustments to accommodate the additional $700,000 worth of expenditures. That brought us back to what was the original budget reduction proposals made back in June of 2017.
And those were the ones that, the additional 323.
343 from the audit, from the treasurer's office, $80,000 of mental health tax funding, $100,000 worth of sales tax, there were a couple of revenue items. That brought us back to what was the June budget reduction request, which is the front page document.
$36.9.
Correct.
So I'm just looking at the budget, trying to find where I'm at, foundationally on it. Because I believe that the 95,000 they brought into revenue should be an offset of what they're doing. And then the question would be on the $150,000 from VHO, whether that should be supplant or not. If it was not supplant, that would put us at 945 with 915,000 in revenue increases, not counting traffic policing or levy shift. With my original recommendation, so that still puts us over even with those added.
What size is the box, people? Let's go back to that one. Randy's box is 36 million. My box is 36.5 million. Kevin's box is 37.5.
And the material differences between those are levy shift, traffic diversion at 500, and traffic diversion at 700.
And zero.
And so,
And zero.
Randy, you are proposing monies, additional monies into any fund balance of how much here?
Well, if we added a line, we'd have to add a line to do that. It'll show up there, magically at the end of the year, if we don't have a line. we'll budget
No. Based on this, you have an ending fund balance of 3.1, I have an ending fund balance of 2.9, Kevin has one of 3.2. So I'm just trying to see where our differences are there. Unexpended budget authority will be what it is. This is where I wanna land on that one. Even I, 175,
Actually, mine would actually be a little different than that. It didn't come out this way, but the 150 is supposed to be, supplant. In my,
down to the end of fund balance.
yeah, the BHO funds is supposed to be supplant. And so it would have a positive effect of $150,000 on the ending fund balance.
So that would bring your ending fund balance.
3.278.
If I may, it does supplant, there's no increase here in the sheriff's office. Where am I? Here, there's no increase. There's no increase in expenditures here in the sheriff's office. Or reduction of expenditures in the sheriff's office. So that is supplanted. Original request was 10,219,906, excluding traffic police. So we took in the revenue and did not change the sheriff's office budget. So it wouldn't fall to the bottom line, I guess is what I'm trying to avoid. Not that I'm trying to avoid it, it wouldn't fall to the bottom line.
Bottom line of expenditures.
Ending fund balance.
So is it in there at the 3.1 million proposal for ending fund balance?
Correct.
Okay. So we're at 175.6K difference on ending fund balance.
Well, where are we different, Frank? If mine and hers are the same except for she's got an increase of 5 and an expenditure of 5, that should be a
Well,
wash.
she's got,
So your differences are partially in public defense and Superior Court.
So you dropped your public defense number?
I did. I dropped Superior Court.
Okay, let's talk about.
as well as allowed to
Let's talk about-
increase the sheriff's budget by 150 to cover.
Let's talk about the public defense one for a second. Because I missed something I thought we all,
I wanted to go by these one by one, but we're moving back and forth between revenues.
there's
So
something-
my reasoning behind public defense is that is a department that we do have the ability to manage the budget. And because we don't know the caseloads of the public defense, and if there truly will be 12 police officers, however many police officers laid off, there's a potential that we will see a reduction in expenses in the public defense. But because we manage that budget, and because we do have the potential for unexpended budget authority, I am comfortable with a potential mid-year adjustment with the Office of Public Defense. Superior Court, I increased what the cut on that one. It wasn't compelling. As much as I searched and searched and searched, the reduction in services was not, this is what I heard, and I apologize if somebody's Superior Court here, and I didn't get this all right. There is a computer program maintenance contract that potentially won't be paid for. There would be the loss of appointment services from the family law facilitator, and some transcription services potentially would be not done in a timely fashion. And that there would be a reduction in the judge's time, office time to prepare for the court for any trials. Those weren't compelling enough for me.
Okay. So you brought it back to the original cut,
Correct.
okay? And the other one on the public defender, I thought And I'm trying to figure it out. I'm not judging you, I'm trying to figure out myself, seeing if I can make an adjustment here or not. I thought, the way it was explained to us, though, that the real number is 300,000 that he needed. He came back to us with 100,000, but when he was done talking to us, he told us, that's not real.
185 was what he came down.
And so,
And that was predicated on what the, if I may call it, the throughput through the judicial system might end up being with dramatic cuts. If that does not occur, then he would need to come back to the commission mid-year and say, I need to have an increase in my budget. So he reduced it by 185 from his 300,000 request. And then the commission added back 200 in the first scenario.
okay.
So I would kind of paraphrase, Commissioner Drexler, you're assuming that that workload, that would be closer, his return, the second time Peter came in, will be more closely aligned with their reality based on other cuts experienced in the criminal justice system. That's the assumption, okay.
That and one of the other reasons I wanted to try to offset the cuts in the prosecutor's office, because I do want the WDLS 3s to happen, and I think that there would be a tremendous workload reduction or caseload reduction on that. And this, we can still save bodies, the cuts in the public defense's contracts, so those can be
Those aren't
brought
bodies,
back.
those are contracts.
So you don't,
On the Superior Court, because let's say I go with that one, okay, the OPD. On the Superior Court one. I'm trying to go over it all in my head and what I heard. What was the reduction in bodies that were in that one? If you were to look at it? That's where I was,
I saw 3.
that's where I made my decision, was based upon that.
But they have not told us who will be laid off. It's been a very difficult discussion to have, and I'm not sure where you got that assumption.
Just counting bodies. We're looking at dollars. I have not had independent conversation either.
All I have is what was here.
Well, for now, let's start with what we have in common on that. Change line by the 60 for the OPD. If you think so, I'm trying to figure out how. Superior Court. What are your comments on that?
Oh, I would have put the 100,000 there. I think it's, for Superior Court?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have left it as is, simply because I think, I thought that Judge Goodell's comments about the dependency cases that we're currently having with, just I think the family, the position, the family law facilitator, I think that's an important one to have.
One of the things that adding the 3rd judge did for us, and one of the reasons behind it, was to bring civil cases, to have those be done quicker. I do know that with a cut like this, there's potential those civil cases going back to being long waiting for hearings. But it's
And
some-
not because of the lack of a judge, but rather because of the lack of the staff.
And one more comment. If the voters said no to a ballot proposition, then they're willing to deal with the cuts and services. And so that's what that said to me. or there was not an understanding of the need. But I think the only way to do that is, you know, if people are okay with a reduction in services, then. Unfortunately, longer times to get civil cases handled is one of them. I could agree with you, Commissioner Miller, I don't know the impact, I'm sorry, of reducing or increasing the cuts required of the clerk's office by 25,000. I'm not sure what the impact of that was.
There was some conversations with Frank, so we went through the numbers a little bit more. Just to try to sharpen the pencils and find where they still had capacity, and there was some things that they hadn't even done yet, or prepared to do yet, as part of it. What was some of the other stuff that they were
I don't recall at this point, that was, what I recall in the conversation was that your original number was to backfill them 75,000, not to the 100. And then this is now adjusting that.
We went to 100, and then we're talking the opposite. You said that you could see it doing with 75, and then we talked about some of the issues of why. But that's all that's based upon, just trying to sharpen, especially with everything coming on. So adjusted expense,
We had 100K, I was reserving that. Because of their assumption that, or I believe I had heard
Yeah, and that's,
that
I don't
they
recall,
could meet the 61K cut.
my recollection is that your, Commissioner Edelman, your original number for the clerk was to backfill in 75,000. No, she's on.
So by losing that additional body in the treasurer's office, has anybody had conversations about what the impact of that is? We were not-
I haven't had the conversation. I just remember her in her discussions with us telling us that she was making, and we went over that when we were doing budget time, and, you know, it's not something I wanted, but I believed her.
I could do that reduction. I think there's probably going to be a closed day.
I do recall, if she were to go back, she would need to reduce her hours and possibly close at lunch or close a day.
I think they're all doing that, though. We'll be looking at that.
I don't know if you're keeping track.
I try not to reduce.
I guess Commissioner Nedlin, you're adding 175K to the ending fund balance, it looks like. Is that what I'm?
Correct, roughly, yes. Not the 410.
On yours, you are adding 143 into the ending fund balance?
No, reducing from the 410, 143.
Okay.
Remember, these are all adjustments on
Yeah.
the front page. if I may, back to the conversation around identifying the box on the revenue side. I think I heard an agreement or a consensus that all of the, if I can call them minor adjustments, are in agreement. The two that are in question are the three. In question are the traffic diversion increase of 500, the traffic diversion increase up to 700, and/or the levy shift. And whether or not to use the levy shift to increase reserves.
So I think, to be fair, and I know this probably undercuts my position, I heard a consensus to not do the levy shift.
That's what I haven't heard the consensus yet,
Okay.
and that's why I'm asking.
Oh, gotcha.
You have a no levy shift for me.
Along with the not increase the tax though, the bank capacity cap. Because if we're not gonna do the levy shift, what's our purpose for increasing the tax?
Correct. Correct.
Okay, so we do
And
have,
not even taking the 1%, because you did not budget the 1%.
I get okay with you taking 1% shift.
so then where are we on the traffic diversion? So I do have a consensus for two of no levy shift.
Right.
Commissioner, I could try to.
I do have a consensus, I'm sorry, I do have a consensus of two on the diversion up to 500 with two commissioners.
I would definitely do 500.
Okay. I have one for increasing the diversion to 200. Okay,
That's a no.
that's a no.
District's not coming. Is the road levy at zero now?
500.
The road levy, are we taking zero? Okay.
I'm sorry, road levy?
Yes, because we right now took the
The
bank.
levy
capacity.
shift is zero.
Right, but the road levy,
bank
we're not going to
capacity.
increase it at all.
I'm okay with 1%.
That's what I was hearing, 1%, and Terry was.
Well,
Yeah, I'm okay with 1%. I mean, they didn't budget.
Or do you
for
want
it.
to bank the 1%?
Definitely bank if we don't take it.
And their budget,
Up to you
and
guys.
their budget did not take it.
Potentially, we're
Well,
taking an
let-
additional 500K.
I'm not in favor of the 500,000, but if you're gonna hit them with the 500,000, the least we can do is give them back 90,000 of it, 94, with that 1%. What's it come up to with 1% now on that side, do you know?
It's roughly 100,000.
Yeah.
I'm okay if you need it. But it didn't sound like it wasn't compelling. What would happen to the levy diversion loss? It was bathroom remodels and what else?
I gotta agree with that, but I wanna be careful that we don't scare them into coming in and giving us blown up stuff next time.
And then
Thank
we
you.
don't know what happens if we have a weather event. I
Thank you.
remember that part.
So I have two yeses to go to increase the roads 1%.
Yes, I'm a yes. I'm a yes.
I would do 1%.
So we have a traffic policing sitting at an increase of 500,000. Are you a yes on that one as well?
I'm not.
Okay.
No, one thing, you guys already know this, but I do want to say that there's another worry I have about doing that. And I had talked to staff about it, and one of the worries is, you know, we can drop another 500 grand on it, it's like putting a flag on top of it saying, look at me, as we're experiencing with our experience in Thurston County. That's another one of my worries on the side, but it isn't big enough to, but I thought I'd tell you that.
So, and let me just share with you that I'm having, Chief Sperling had gone to the crab board, or to the crab offices, and there's good information regarding how that, you know, what is the crab board's consideration of how that money could be used. And I'm really, because we've had a clean record with them, and because there's additional knowledge base, I'm more comfortable than I've ever been with it.
Okay.
Sure.
Chief, did you also share with them your proposal of how we would increase it? Or you just get information?
I went there and sat down with the director, the deputy director, and with Derek, I don't remember his title, but asked them what their requirements would be and what they would be looking for. The one thing they did say is that they're looking at all agencies a little closer than they have in the past. So they didn't indicate to me that it was going to be any more of a flag than what it's always been, and we've had a good record.
I will tell you, when I met with them, they wanted to help us. They
they're very
were
helpful.
not our enemy on it, but they cautioned over and over again, but he said he understood our situation and wanted to help us. So I believed him when he said it too, by the way.
And this, for me, is that one-time stopgap for the very reason I was sharing. I took to heart what the tip cap said. And there'll be a point when we'll need to bring that money back when we're ready to build. But knowing that there's 10% bank capacity, I know there's money there as well.
So I believe we boxed the revenue side in at 35,526,203.
One more time, Fred?
36,526,203.
That's mine.
There we go. Correct. So with that, then we can make adjustments on the expenditure side. It basically reduces our expenditures from the front page by $440,000. Now, if you want to use the front page as a basis, ending fund balance was increased by $410,000. So we have $440,000 that we need to reduce. And since what I have heard, at least in two areas, was that there will be some unexpended budget authority that will fall to the bottom line that you don't want to consider as a number. So we can eliminate the 410 and let ending fund balance sit where ending fund balance equals the beginning fund balance, which is what it would do.
Based on our financial report today,
It looks like we will be at least there.
3.1.
Correct.
Which is $567K less than our 9% limit. Or our aspiration of 9% of the And if it's true that at least 600K will come from unexpended budget authority, then
That will
we'll meet
backfill that.
We'll meet our 9%. And sales tax committee.
But that defines the revenue box. Now, we could also consider a smaller levy shift.
Well, we haven't
We haven't considered, we haven't,
gone through the,
right. I just wanted to throw that out there. It's like 855 was simply that's bank capacity. You utilize all of it. But we can have a levy shift at any dollar amount up to 855, which would not have an impact this year on roads.
so we've got the prosecutor's office. Is there any? Movement on that?
I guess we can go start at the, if you want to do that, you want to start at the top. I'm assuming the assessor's office of 50,000, that I think everybody is in agreement. The clerk's office, I'm sorry, the auditor's office of 50,000, there again, everybody is in agreement. The clerk's office, we have 2 at 100,000 and 1 at 75,000.
Okay, and that at 100,000, it would be a $61,000 cut, correct?
Correct.
At Commissioner Netherland's 75, that increases the cut to what?
86,000.
So that's how many bodies?
At 2 and change, 1 and change, but in effect, it would be 2 positions.
Because they end up, yeah. Wasn't one of those positions the one that would do collections of fees and fines? Of some kind, I thought I remembered.
Don't recall.
Commissioner Netherland, do you know the impact of increasing the reduction?
Do I know the impact of it? No, I don't. I can't tell you that, it's an absolute on any of that. Again, on some of it, especially when we're looking to sharpen the pencils, especially getting down our numbers now. I truly am worried about a downgrade. So anything I put away, even a 50,000, 25,000 pop right now.
with the 25,000, being able to say I agree without knowing the impact. Because if it's two bodies, I mean, if you're going to a less than one FTE,
Well, okay, it depends on what level that FTE is. If it's at the low end, it's not as impactful in reduction as it is at the high end, so. So I have 2 to keep it at 100. The district court, I had 3 to reduce it by 26, to do an additional buyback of 26.
correct.
Then we have prosecutors. In 2, it was to leave it at 210. I had 2 to increase the coroner by 5,600.
We have the coroner here. What I understand is a $45,000 cut cuts into your ability to pay for the autopsy. That's where-
Pathologist.
So is that the complete amount set aside for autopsies?
No.
Okay, so what does that look like on the number you have each year versus it would go down to what?
If I took a $40,000 hit, I would have to eliminate shifts, not refurbish supplies. I have enough set aside for autopsies, but that means shifts, 24-hour coverage shifts and supplies would not be, I wouldn't be able to make it. I can do it with the $6,000 cut that is still on the table, but it's going to mean not refurbishing death investigation supplies for next year, during next year, and possibly reducing some shifts.
Okay, thank you.
So what the increase on the first page was to
Is that
get the sheriff, the coroner up to $40,000 closer to his cut. And then in addition, 2 of the proposals added another 5,600 to make, to not have a cut in the coroner's office. So do we want to keep that 5,006 or leave it as the 40,000?
I don't want it to be something that's a sticking point.
Yeah.
I think that it's a small enough amount that
So increase it to 46,500. I'm sorry, 45,600. And then we have the 500 to traffic policing. We had the question around OPD.
you got the 150. That would be-
We have 150 for the BHO, sorry. And the 500 in traffic policing. And we had OPD of 200,000. And I believe I had a consensus to reduce that by 60,000. Previously. Okay. Superior Court, the consensus was to keep them at the 100,000.
I could concur with
So what would be the,
that. I'd have to drop from this.
Their cut would be 50,000.
so they would be at,
855, 792. Then we have the treasurer.
Can I ask Commissioner Judy, the other 66,000 that you're suggesting?
That's why I was asking. So I put the 66,000 in the, hang on, let me double check the numbers here. Go to 922. And then you were down to 755. And my reasoning hasn't changed. I think there's programming in there that I think is important. But I would be more comfortable at 855 than I would be at 755.
Thank you.
And then the last one was the treasurer of 65,000. There, I had a consensus to leave them with the 65,000.
Well, I'd be willing to really decide on
So if I may,
Down to 689.
so if we eliminate the ending fund balance, and I'll need to confirm these numbers, I believe we are back at bringing what we discussed as far as changes, adding to district court the 26,000, adding to coroner 5,600, adding to the sheriff 150, deducting from OPD 60,000, and deducting the entire increase to the ending fund balance of 410,000. That would bring us to within $10,000 of the revenue box. So what I can do is confirm.
I could reduce the, my support of the non-supplanting of the BHO, reduce that down to 140.
Well, let me, I'm within $1,000.
$10,000.
$1,000 or $2,000. So let me confirm the math.
Okay.
Do we want to hold another briefing late this afternoon, or do we just want to recalculate all of this for tomorrow morning's briefing?
Right now on the books, on the agenda, we have a 10 o'clock tomorrow following commission meeting. Do you want to have a final one?
What is your,
I'm good with that, if, just to give you cash.
Well, no, I'll confirm all of the numbers and generate a new proposed budget.
I'd rather you have it completely right and take as much time as you need
Yeah,
to
exactly.
rush it.
No, I need to hash through all of these and double check all of the numbers, and then we can confirm everything tomorrow morning.
so I want to ask a question that may throw a little bit of a monkey wrench into process here. So going back to certifying the levies and certifying the road levy, that has to, the road levy in particular, when we talk about increasing the traffic diversion by 500,000, that can't be a separate vote, that's all one vote with the 1%, 500,000 increase in.
Certification is one vote.
Okay, so, would you vote for levy?
No, let's talk about that. Are you positive it cannot be bifurcated, that we cannot separate it? Are you positive of that? Because I think you can, I think we have in the past.
I don't think we've ever bifurcated the diversion.
I thought Tim asked for it one year.
It's on the levy adoption
It's on
resolution as
adoption
one
resolution as
computation.
is one calculation. And as far as I remember, it's never been bifurcated.
And I think, well, I probably will vote for it.
Okay, I just wanted
And
to
we
make sure
can
that.
vote, and we can vote on that next Tuesday.
Are we gonna have a motion to rescind the other one?
You'll be replacing, you'll be
It would be
amending the
replaced.
one you did.
And would that just be language that's in the new resolution?
Yes.
Replaces resolution number, yada, yada.
Yada yada over the best part. So, okay, so we can handle it that way, and you would anticipate next Tuesday versus tomorrow.
Well, the meeting would be before our next workshop, so it would have to be next Tuesday, and that would not be a problem.
So at next Tuesday's agenda, you're saying we'll recertify levies,
And
and
adopt
then
the budget.
after, it'll be a budget adoption.
Correct. Now, if we confirm these numbers tomorrow, I'll need to turn around from the departments. I'll need a turnaround from the departments within a day or two to give me details of their new budget proposal.
If we adopt budgets, a whole number for each of the departments, don't they just then get the opportunity between our adoption and?
But I would
the
still
year?
like to validate the proposal. Yes, we can, but I'd like to validate the proposal as to the unemployment charges, the charge for
Social Security, LMI.
Social Security,
all of
LMI.
it.
Wages and benefits versus the
Oh,
operating.
position control.
not necessarily position control, but to validate that
The things that we can do.
transfers in and out are
Position control.
correct, that the internal allocations are correct, that the charge for computers are correct, and all of that kind of good stuff.
And plus, we will, even if you adopt it at totals, we need to immediately get it into munis because we're running into 2018 expenditures.
As
You have
well
to be able
as,
to put each
I
one.
can't close 2017 without having it in munis, because that's part of the process. It rolls the budget forward, and in order to have the budget rolled forward so that we can incur expenditures, I have to have numbers. So I'm going to need to ask for a very quick turnaround on new budget stuff, budget submissions.
So, would it be fair to say, for people who may want to start working
I would,
in anticipation of that,
I would
they would
start
work off
working
the
off of
commissioner
the-
Drexler's,
no, actually, I would work off of the original
okay.
document. And I'll discuss with the 1, 2, 3 departments that are different, what their differences are.
Okay, so the plan is to be back for a workshop tomorrow morning at
10 a.m.
10 a.m. Okay. Okay, thanks everybody.